Starting, all attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We're very excited to host today's Business Productivity webinar, How SharePoint Can Increase Your Employees' Productivity. Presenting today's topic is Costin Dorsey. Costin has over 20 years experience in information security, systems development, project management, and software development. He's also a Microsoft certified professional and has provided trainings on Microsoft Office, Visio, and Project, as well as SharePoint, Internet Explorer, and Firefox. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored towards your specific requirements. If you are interested in further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning is an award-winning global leader in managed learning services, training, and talent development. We offer over 2,000 IT, business, and soft skills courses available to organizations around the world, encompassing all your technology and business training needs. Netcom Learning is the most trusted name in both business and IT training and offers top-notch instructors and vendor-approved coursework offering certification preparation for a variety of vendor certifications. So, why should you attend this webinar? Microsoft SharePoint is a business and collaboration tool that has all the necessary ingredients to maximize employee performance and improve internal business efficiency. By giving sufficient focus to workflows, SharePoint allows everything else to fall into place, leading and impressive results in both the short and the long run. Now I'll just give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To start with, you do have the option to adjust the window size to your liking. Simply hit the Escape key and find the Zoom button on the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Please feel free to submit any questions that you do have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. A PDF copy of today's slides are also in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. In just a few moments, I'm going to be passing it over to Costin, who will be presenting today's topic. Costin, go ahead, you're live.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you. Tracy, I appreciate that wonderful introduction. And as she said, my name is Costin Dorsey, and I am coming to you live from Richmond, Virginia. So everyone should be able to see my screen now with a PowerPoint presentation that starts off the top with how SharePoint can increase your employees' productivity. So the agenda for today, as I speak, is to show you how to access a SharePoint site, how to post an announcement, how to upload and download files, and show you an example of versioning. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Now, really the question is how overall that SharePoint can increase your employees' productivity. Well, being in IT for as long as I have, this is a tool that first of all is web-based. So many of you have probably used Windows Explorer or other tools, maybe even if you're in the legal field, a tool called Hummingbird that enables you to access your files, but secure them so others can't, and then be able to try to modify and work on those files at the same time without stepping on each other's toes. So with SharePoint, it's basically a website, okay, a website builder that usually is used within an organization for a team, a group of people, or even something as large as a department. There are some companies and organizations out there that do use SharePoint for what I call their public-facing website. So when you go to their web address, the page that pops up is SharePoint. And there could be tons of discussion about that. But today we're going to focus, like I said, a little lower on that and how you can work together as a team using SharePoint to be able to share files and modify them a bit, post announcements and so forth. And anyone with a web browser can access it. So it can be used in a Microsoft web browser, Google web browser, Firefox, or even different operating systems, like most of the Windows operating systems, and even some Apple operating systems. So those are just some of the benefits of how it can increase your productivity. And with the right connectivity, you'll be able to access these websites and information from any device in the world. I've even been able to do this with my smartphone. So there's no special software that as a user you have to have installed or anything like that. Okay, so that's what makes it so easy to use. In my PowerPoint presentation here, the first thing I want to talk to you about is how to access a SharePoint site. Okay, so is a Microsoft product, so you have to have a Microsoft account in order to do it. Now, most of you out there have Microsoft Windows as your operating system, and your systems administrators, your IT people, can tie your SharePoint access in with your user account that you use to log into your computer in the morning, okay? Other organizations will have a different account that is used to access SharePoint, and that is used, like I mentioned earlier, to be able to access it or a smartphone around the world. Now, SharePoint is actually part of the Microsoft Office suite. So if you take a look at the slide in front of you, there's a couple different ways, depending on how your organization is set up, that you can access your SharePoint sites. So the top one is called a Universal Resource Locator or web address. And I just use an example there of how a company I used to work for, if we had that link as a shortcut or something on our desktop, we could just click on it and it would take us to the SharePoint site, okay? Otherwise, your second option is to log into office.com. There's even a couple different variations of that. I think there's like a sharepoint.office.com, and then you put in your credentials, your Microsoft email address, that's tied to maybe your corporate address, and then your password, and that will give you access to it. So I want to show you how to go ahead and do that. Now, like I said, it is SharePoint will work very well with every browser I've worked with, but let's look at this logically. SharePoint is a Microsoft product, so I have seen it work faster and a little bit more efficiently with a Microsoft browser. So for instance, if I come down to my taskbar down here, there's Microsoft Edge. So when I click on that, that'll take me to whatever home page I have set for that. But then up here in the URL field, I can just type in office.com. You gotta spell it right, of course, and then hit enter. And what should happen is you will get a screen where you can log in. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a login button, and then right in the middle of the screen in red is a sign in button, okay? And as you see in the middle of the screen right before the sign in button, it has a web address that, or I'm sorry, an email address that I use for an older firm. So, it'll put that in there for you, but you can use any Microsoft related Office 365 account to get there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on sign in. And what you'll notice on the right-hand side of the screen, your screen may look a little bit different, okay? is a list of email accounts that I have used before in accessing Office 365. And each one of them gives you different permissions, enables you to access different programs, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to use the top one and click on that. And then after a little redirecting, it will ask me for the password that goes with that email address on top. So I type in my password and click sign in. And what we have here is we have what I call the Microsoft menu, okay? So with this account, I have access to all these products right here. Now, something to keep in mind, like I said, especially if you're using a different computer than maybe the one you have for your organization. My name's Costin Dorsey, but I have like 5 or 6 different Microsoft accounts. If you're ever wondering, well, gee, what account am I using? I know I just signed in, but I want some confirmation here. Over here in the upper right-hand corner is your name. When you click on that, with information about what account you're using, okay? See the one that is at cptechgroup.com. Okay, so what that means is that organization purchased a Microsoft Office 365 account, and when I log in with it, all these tiles that you see, starting with mail, all the way down to store, that organization has purchased and enabled me to use through the web browser, okay? So maybe if you have a personal Office 365 account, you might not have all these different programs. You might not have Sway or Power Apps, or you might not have SharePoint because it wasn't paid for, okay? So this account does have SharePoint. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and click on SharePoint, and it will take me to my organization's homepage or site for SharePoint. Now all this is set up for testing, okay? And if you notice, on the left-hand side of the screen are links to different sites that I have created, mostly for testing and so forth. And under featured links is a team site. So that is a site where people at my older organization and I would work and collaborate on things. But today I'm just going to show you how to work with the test site. So you just go ahead and click on it. Now, something else to keep in mind too, don't forget this is a web browser. So I have not come across anything yet in SharePoint, maybe 1 or 2 small things where you have to double click on everything. So just as if you were at Amazon or CNN or somewhere, to get somewhere, you'll have to click on it one time, and that'll allow you to do what you need to do, okay? So one of the things we wanted to talk about was how to post an announcement, okay? Now, back on my presentation here in PowerPoint, our next slide talks a little bit about what an announcement is. Okay, so what is an announcement? Okay, first of all, an announcement really is a content type or web part. And I'll show you these as we go through the SharePoint site. So the little tiles and different things that you see on your SharePoint site are referred to as web parts, and each web part has a specific content to it. Now, SharePoint is continually changing because it is run by Microsoft and pushed out to you via a web browser, similar to, let's say, Google and some of their products. When Microsoft makes a change to the way things are laid out on the screen, they can look a little bit different, okay? So a content type on our announcement might be referred to something that's got a different name to it. So if you look at our second bullet, it says, while on your site, click the arrow next to new and select News Post. Then name your announcement or news post. Click Publish, and the new post should appear on your homepage. So let me go ahead and demonstrate that to you. So back over here at my test area, what I have is I now have the ability to go ahead and add something new to that page. So what I'm going to add, most people would consider an announcement. It's just basically text of news. Like I think in the slide I mentioned that, you know, school is closed due to snow, or the air conditioning is broken, or if you're with a religious organization, your service times have changed. Whatever it is, it's just something that usually you try to put on your front page. You don't need people to react to it. It's just basically a statement or an announcement, or however you want to put it. Okay, so if you notice up here, there's a drop-down button for new. So there's a plus, and then there's a drop-down button. When you click the drop-down button, what you can do is go ahead and click on News Post, okay? And this is where some of the wording in SharePoint can be a little misleading. It says name your page, okay? So this isn't necessarily a separate page. It could be, but this could be something you can actually try to target and put on your team's SharePoint homepage or base page. So you're in the edit mode at this point in time, and there's a couple ways to tell that, okay? First of all, there isn't a button over here that says edit. Secondly, right here, I have a cursor. So I can type anything I want to in here, just like I would in a very small version of Microsoft Word, okay? So I'm going to put in a new announcement that's pertinent to some of us here in Richmond, Virginia. Okay. Okay, so that's just a piece of news. Okay, a while back, the air conditioning systems weren't working in some places and so forth, so people were working from home and all that, which of course is just fine. But now, when they're at home and they're looking at their SharePoint site, they can see, okay, great, they fixed the AC, the building's open, I can now go into work if I want, and so on and so forth, and not sweat to death. Now, in the mode that I'm in, this edit mode, no one can see what I have typed in here yet, because I have not published it, okay? Notice over here on the right-hand side is a button that says Publish. Now, that button does two things, okay? It saves the changes I just made, and it will make it viewable to anyone who has access to the site, okay? As opposed to over here on the left, it says Save and Close. If you just hit Save and Close, it will save your changes, but it will not post or publish them to the people that have access to your site. Now, you would do that if you're in the middle of doing a lot of SharePoint work, like adding calendars or synchronizing different documents and things like that. So you're kind of building your SharePoint page, but you're not ready to have everyone view it yet. But you can do some work, save it, come back to it, do some work, come back to it. But let's say I'm ready now. This is an announcement that's very timely. So I'm going to go ahead and click Publish, okay? And it'll start to spin and start to publish this. Now, Microsoft SharePoint is a wonderful tool. However, I just want you to keep in mind that since it is web-based, okay, the speed that you normally get from using any type of website, whether it's Amazon or CNN or Coca-Cola.com, that's about the same speed that you're going to get with this, okay? So when you do something like with Microsoft Word locally or in Excel, it moves so quick you can't even tell what it's doing. Since this is web-based, things can maybe take just a few seconds longer. So just be patient and remember it's just a single click. Okay, so now I have just created a new announcement or a news item, okay, but I haven't added it to my home page here. You don't see anything here about air conditioning, okay? So what I did is I created a site content or web part. So all I have to do is click on site contents and then peruse through the list that comes up, different things that I have created for this particular SharePoint site, okay? So in this instance, what I should have is under, let's see, site assets, a list of other things that I have produced for the site. And like I said, it can take a while to load, okay? So if I don't see my item there, I can go back to my home page, okay, and search through and find the different announcements that I have published, but I maybe haven't put in certain sites. But notice now that I've refreshed the page, since I published it, on the left-hand side, news post for 7/24 is there, okay? And notice the announcement that I created using this new button on my base page now appears at the top. Okay, so right now, everyone in my organization can go to this site and see, the important announcement we have there. And there are also some other things you can do with this. For instance, you can put what I call a timer on it. Okay, so I don't need this announcement to be up there for the next 5 or 6 days, maybe just a day or two. So one of the settings for this announcement or news item is when do I want SharePoint to stop posting it? And I can set that for a day or 2 days, or I think even less than that, like number of hours and so forth. So all these different web parts have lots of different settings, and those are covered in our beginning, intermediate, and advanced SharePoint classes that can be really detailed about how to do that and make your site look the way you want it to, okay? So now as I go back to my PowerPoint presentation, the next thing that we want to talk about is documents. And this is one of the more powerful aspects of SharePoint. If you remember, before maybe you started using SharePoint or you heard about SharePoint, if in your organization you wanted to share documents, okay, maybe you're in a department and you want to be able to see a list of documents, or you want to be able to have a small group of 10 people open them and edit them, or maybe just view them and not edit them and so forth. All that was handled with this little program down here called Windows Explorer, okay, which has been part of Microsoft Windows since the beginning of Windows. And some people really struggle with how to use this, because way over here on the left are links to what you might have heard of as shared drives, and usually they're given a letter like U for the user drive, or T for team drive, and that type of thing. And although it's not supposed to be confusing, it can be. So with SharePoint, we use the same functionality, but we don't need to use this anymore. What we can do now is use SharePoint, okay? So let's go back to our SharePoint site. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and show you how to upload a document and how to download a document. So over here on the left-hand side, you have a link for documents. Okay, so this is on my main page. Cost and Test is like my home page for my department. And I click on Documents, and it'll bring up a list of basically files. Okay, so just like in Windows Explorer that I showed you, okay, there were, different drives and all this kind of stuff. This list is targeted to people in my team that have access to it. And you notice there are a couple documents that are already listed here, okay? And again, the thing to keep in mind is there's not much, if any, double clicking going on. A lot of this is going to be single click, okay? So if I want to upload a file, say I have something on my local computer or even on my OneDrive or somewhere, all I have to do is click on upload, and it will enable me to choose to upload a file at a time or an entire folder. So I'm going to click on Files. Now this screen should look familiar, okay? This will never go away as far as Microsoft is going to be around, because you have to know where your files are at some point in time. Just by posting them to SharePoint, all the other members of your team don't have to necessarily go through all this to find them from any computer or device in the world, okay? So what I'm going to do is go ahead and post or upload a copy of the presentation that I was just showing you, okay? So all I do is click on it to select it, and then I come down here and click Open. And what will happen is after a while, okay, and that didn't take too long, it will now be listed under Documents. Now, something I want to remind you of though, with the first page where I showed you how to post a news item or an announcement or even pictures or whatever, remember you had to edit the page and then you had to publish it, okay? Documents is a little bit different. Once you upload it and it's finished uploading, and this has been as of a few seconds ago, that file is ready for your team or whomever has access to it to do what they are allowed to do, okay? So, for instance, let's say I just posted this, okay? Now, there are a lot of other things we talk about in our classes about how someone can open this file, okay? And 2 or 3 people or more can make changes to it at the same time. That's the collaboration part that Tracy talked to you about, which is one of the more powerful pieces of SharePoint. But right now, another team member, maybe they want you to just take a copy of this with them on a flash drive or something. For whatever reason, they have a need to download the file, okay, which isn't always recommended, but if you have questions about that, I can answer it for you. So, like in Internet Explorer, when you have to select a file and then issue a command to do something with it, like download it or delete it or copy it or move it, same thing here, but the interface is a little different. Notice when I hover over a file, you can hardly see it, but to the left is like a little checkbox. So for the file I just uploaded with the word final in it, I have to click the checkbox, okay? And that means that that file is selected, and up here you might have noticed a series of commands appear for operations that I can do on that one file that I selected, okay? And one of them is download, okay? So I can click on download, and down here you'll get the whatever browser you're using standard request to when you want to download a file. Do you want to just save it automatically somewhere, or choose where you want to save it, or you made a mistake and you want to cancel? So I'll just hit save as, okay? And then here we are, back to that graphical user interface of you deciding where do you want to put this file. And using the tools over here, you can put it on your local drive, like I will, and you can also rename it. So I'm going to put it in C temp, but this time I'm going to rename it, okay? So in my opinion, this is not quite final, okay, in my opinion. So, and then I just go ahead and hit save, and it'll save that file for me, okay? And then down here with Edge, it allows me to open it right away, or open a folder, or view downloads, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing I did want to show you, because I wanted you to see how to get files up and get files down, but one of the best things about SharePoint is that you can put a file in a document listing here on a SharePoint website that's on a SharePoint server and never really have to download it and make changes to it and different things like that. You can actually do it right here, okay? Now this is going to start to get into the, I guess, sort of the latter part of the presentation, which has to do with versioning, okay? So I think I'd mentioned to you, I use an example of a program called Hummingbird. Hummingbird, if you don't know what that is a product that was created decades ago for hundreds of thousands of dollars that law firms used to be able to do what we're doing now for like pennies on the dollar with Microsoft, which is where paralegals, attorneys, executive assistants, and so forth would be able to go to an interface very similar to Windows Explorer and start making changes to files in Hummingbird, that very expensive old product, I don't even know if it's used anymore, will keep track of the versions and the changes made to that document and even put a name next to the document for the changes that were made for it, okay? So, as opposed to me going to my local hard drive where I just downloaded this file, what I should be able to do now is just click on the file. And if I have access to PowerPoint, okay, which I do, then I can actually open this file using an online version of PowerPoint or a local version of PowerPoint, okay? So this is just a copy that is on the SharePoint server of the PowerPoint presentation I've been showing you. Now notice up here in the upper right, there's an option to open with a drop-down arrow, and I have one of two options. I can select to open this in PowerPoint online, okay? Or if I have a local copy of PowerPoint on my computer, like if you notice when I come down to the bottom of my screen, I have an icon here for the PowerPoint presentation I was really using for you. So when I click on that, that's not a web browser. That is PowerPoint with another copy of this file in here that I could change and edit and so forth, okay? But again, the power of SharePoint is that if you remember back here on my list of tiles and programs that I have access to, PowerPoint is one of the programs that I now have access to in a web browser online. So if I am out of town at Christmas using grandma's computer or something like that, and she didn't spend, $400 for the whole full suite of Microsoft products or, whatever reason, well, it's nothing to worry about. If something occurs while you're traveling or on vacation or out of town, okay, then you can go ahead and see what your files look like and make changes to them right from this interface. So let me go back up here to this tab. So I'm going to click on Open in PowerPoint Online. So I click that. Now notice we're still in the web browser Edge. You can tell because in the upper right, we have a little star for favorites and all that kind of stuff. We have extra tabs that I can click on and go to the Netcom Learning website or CNN or wherever I might want to go. But right now, I am in edit mode, okay, to where I can actually make changes to this file, and other people that have access to it can do it too. So this would be like a second version of that file. So for instance, let's say, and this happens quite a bit, there's a huge argument about how you spell SharePoint. Do you use a big P, little p. Technically, you're supposed to use a big P, and some people like to use spaces and other people don't. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a space between share and point. Maybe that's just my opinion of how that's done. But also keep in mind, there is no save button. Matter of fact, if you look up here, it says that that's been saved. So that little space that I just added has been saved to that document listed over here under Documents right as I started to make the change. Okay, notice again a few seconds ago. So let me go back to PowerPoint Online. Okay, so I've made my change and maybe I've finished. So all I have to do now, if I am finished, is I just go ahead and X the tab out, and that will close the editable version of PowerPoint. And this is just a display version of that file. Okay, I can close that. That was first. Okay, and now we're back in my documents. All right. So now, occasionally you may want to do this in SharePoint. If you're not seeing results of things you're doing right away, remember it is a web browser. So you do have the refresh button up here. So upon occasion, when you make big changes, you upload a lot of files, or you make major changes to a file on SharePoint, like I did. It wasn't a major change, but a change nonetheless. You can click refresh, and anything new that has occurred with your SharePoint site, okay, will be refreshed. So let me go here again and click on the file and see if it took my change. Now again, the web browser can take a little while for things to open up, but it's now notice there's my space. Okay, so again, I did not have to have PowerPoint installed on my computer. I could have used any computer or any desktop in the world and take care of business. So great, it took my change. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. Now, let's pretend that my supervisor feels differently about the word SharePoint. My supervisor thinks it should be all one word, okay, but with a little p. So they can go to the site, and of course, if I have access to the site, usually my supervisor does, okay, and they too can click on Documents and see the file once it comes back on the screen that I just changed. Now it's a couple minutes ago, so it's pretty accurate, okay? And they decide they want to change it. So now they can open it when they click on it. And once that appears on your screen, then they will have the option again to go ahead and make a change to it. So let me click one more time. There we go. Okay, so they want to change this. So what they do is they just do the same thing I did. Open in PowerPoint Online, and they're going to make the change that they want. So they go up here, they get rid of the space, delete the big P, put in a lowercase p, and notice it says saving up here. Now it's saved. So now we can go ahead and close this because my supervisor is finished with my change, okay? And then we'll go ahead and close this viewable window of it. So now what I can do is, as I'm, maybe getting ready to send this document to a client or something like that, which can be done from SharePoint, I'm going to go back to my site. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on Documents. Now, since I cannot act as two people at this point in time, I'm going to sort of pretend, but remember the second change I made was like 2 or 3 minutes ago. Well, now I've noticed that a change was made about a minute ago, okay? And if we could pretend that my name's not listed here, but my supervisor is, I immediately can see that, okay, someone has made a change, and it will tell me who it is, and I can go and check to see who that was. Now, as opposed to having to open the file and look at it and check it and all that type of thing, what I can do is I can just select the file, okay? Now, sometimes this is something that's a little hard to spot, but when you select a document in this list, you have 3 little dots here. And if you remember from for some of the items on menus and so forth, when you click on them, they would have like 3 little dots, or they have these drop down arrows to let you know that there is more to come, okay? Well, that's what the 3 little dots mean. So I click on the 3 little dots, and it will give me a menu of things that I can do to that PowerPoint presentation. Well, like I said, I didn't feel like opening it and seeing what changes were made. I just want to get an idea what the version history looks like. So I come down here and click on version history. And this is doing what that very expensive product Hummingbird did before, okay? So first of all, what I can see is the very first creation of this file, version 0 or 1.0, was actually called agenda, okay? Or that's actually a comment that was put in there, okay? And then at 135, another change was made, okay? And it even shows you the size of the file. Now that can be pertinent, because if someone decides to drop a video into the file and you can see that in the size, lends you a lot of clues, as in, oh, I might not be able to email that to somebody because it's too big. Well, we can talk about in the advanced class of SharePoint how you can share that with them, and they don't need email. They can just go to your SharePoint site and get it. But anyway, let me show you what the versioning does. So over here, as I hover over the time and date change of this document and I drop it down, allow me to view the second change made to this file, or I can restore it or delete the version. So let's see what happens if I click on view. Okay, now what it will do is go ahead and bring up some information about the actual version, okay? Then here we have something called edit item, and it says this control is currently disabled. Now I wanted you to see that, okay, because this is very important. So let me close this box and take you back to the versioning box again, which remember is the 3 dots, okay? And then version history. Okay, this is very powerful. Here is really 99% of the time is used just so you and other members of your team can see who made changes when. Maybe not necessarily the changes that were made, okay? And that can be entered into the comments section, and we go into that in our intermediate SharePoint class, how to do that, okay? But remember, when I hover over any of these, and I drop that arrow down, I do have some pretty powerful things. So view has been sort of taken away from me, so to speak, but I can restore that 1.0 version to where that'll become 4.0. Or I could delete the version altogether. Now, each one of these 3 items can be manipulated by your systems administrator. I think if you're keeping track of versions of documents, it would probably not be best to have all of your users to be able to delete previous versions, because maybe there's information in there you want to keep, or maybe there's something going on in the organization that people don't want to be known and so forth. So a systems administrator for SharePoint can shorten this menu to where it's just view. or it's just restore, and deleted can be moved, okay? So that's how you deal with version history in SharePoint. And like I said, although I showed you how you can upload and download files, really, once you have what you've worked on produced and up on your screen, okay, you can work on this file in one spot. And you don't have to worry about different copies of it, because the power of PowerPoint is that it will save the different versions, and you can go back to them when you want to if you have the capability to do that. Or if you want to go the old-fashioned way, of course, you can download it, make changes to it, upload it, whatever works best for your team, department, or organization, okay? So now I'm going to switch back over to my local version of PowerPoint, okay? We've covered versioning and so forth. So now we're at the end of the presentation at this point in time. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and hand it back over to Tracy and to you. I see we have about 34 people out there. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand, and Tracy will make sure that I get this information. And Tracy also has a lot of other information for you about how to find out more about SharePoint and the other parts of Office 365 which integrate with it. Like I just showed you with PowerPoint, you can do that with Outlook and all kinds of great products. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to mute myself and let Tracy take over and start to handle and final steps of our presentation.
Thanks so much, Costin. That was very informative, and we do want to let our attendees know that we do have a special promotion for the recommended courses for this webinar. You can enroll yourself for the courses mentioned on your screen and add 15% to your savings. This offer is valid until August 9th. And now we are going to launch a quick poll to find out how many of you may be interested in taking some additional training. So please just take a few minutes to fill that out so we can stay on top of the things that you're most interested in and offer them to you in our webinars. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register. And don't forget to like and follow our social media pages to get the latest technology updates. You can refer to the GoToWebinar chat windows for our links on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google+. And now let's get to some of those questions for Costin. The first one is, how come you can do some things in your SP environment, but I can't?
Thank you, Tracy, and that is a great question. Of course, SP stands for SharePoint. As you use this product more and more and you start talking to others about it and typing it up, you're going to start going to SP very quickly. But if maybe you were following along, if you have SharePoint, and you were following along trying to do some of the things that I was doing, you might have had, when you click on the three dots, more options than I did. More than likely, some of you probably had less. And again, that goes options. So what you will start to hear, it's becoming more and more popular, is especially within larger organizations, say an organization that has maybe 70 or more people in it, you'll have what's called a SharePoint Champion, okay? So if you remember when I talked to you about versioning, okay, there was the option I said you could have your systems administrator take away the power to delete an older version. Well, I mean, that's a business decision. That's up to your organization, okay? So as you're using it, if you find a functionality or a menu item or something that's not working for you, okay, or you've heard of one that you want, usually the way it goes in larger organizations is you would submit a request through your normal request process to your SharePoint Champion. Your SharePoint Champion is not someone who is a computer expert, okay? They're an expert in SharePoint, and they understand the business processes of your organization. And what they do is they translate what you're asking for, and then they present it to your IT department, which has the power to make those menus have more commands or less commands. Okay, so that's probably the difference. So you will see this quite often. A lot of our clients have just limited options within SharePoint, but each one of the little web parts and things that I showed you, some of them can have thousands of different settings that a SharePoint champion will know or understand or be able to find out about, and then can go to IT with your business need and say, hey, Tracy wants to be able to delete the second or third version of a document. This is why. It's been approved by our supervisor. Then IT would be the one to change that, get back to the champion, and the champion gets back to you.
Okay, next question is from James, who would like to know, how do you delete a SharePoint site?
That's a very good question. Let's see. If Tracy, if you're able to give me back my screen, I can try to take a crack at showing him how to do this. Now, again, James, thank you. This is one of those options that might not be available to you because your organization doesn't want you to do that, okay? It is available. It is part of SharePoint. And you might know where to go to find it, and I'm going to walk you through that, but it might not be there because your organization doesn't want you to basically delete an entire website, okay? So let's take a stroll back to SharePoint, and I'm going to go to this test page, okay? Now, here, one would think there would be a real easy button or something that says delete page, okay? But obviously under new, you're not going to have that, okay? You do have an edit mode, so you can click on edit, okay? And this puts you in that edit mode. Notice now when I click on things, I can edit them, okay? And go back and change them. So that's something you can do too. In addition to deleting a whole page, you can just make changes to a particular be, and then go ahead and save that, so to speak. But up here in the top part of your screen where your name and the question mark is a gear. If you click here, okay, actually let me take you back to the base home page because you were talking about pages. Under the gear, should be, I can change the theme, I can make changes to 365, I can add a page, I can add an app. Let's see, okay. Oh, here we go. Site contents, information, and permissions. So if I click on site information, okay, this will give me a little bit of an option here for changing the name of the site and whom can see it and so forth. But right here it says view all site settings. If you have that and you click on it, this is the screen I was talking to you about. Okay, now this is just for the page where there are thousands of options here. And there should be, or hopefully there is, at least, you know, like I said, I might be denied that right to delete, but I can do a Control F because I'm in a web browser. I should be able to do a Control F and type in the word delete, D-E-L-E-T-E, and I have no results for it. Okay, so that means that I am not allowed at this point in time to delete an entire page because the organization that runs this site has denied me that right. Otherwise, it would probably be listed administration or site actions in order to do that. Now, just real quickly though, you can, if you go back to your page, okay, And although you may not be able to delete the page, remember I edited the page, so I can now go back into edit mode and maybe clean up the page. So for instance, this web part here for this announcement, I can edit it. I can put it into a certain type of move mode we talked about in our beginning class, or I can delete that web part and that will go away. And that's just about half of my web page right there. So that's a sort of a poor man's way of going about doing that. But if you find yourself needing to delete a page and you don't have that option under the gear setting, that's where you get your champion involved and they go from there. Okay?
Okay, Bill would like to know, how do you attach a document to an email? So did you get that question from Bill? How do you attach a document to an email?
Yes, how do you attach a SharePoint document to an email? Okay, so initially the easiest way to do that is, if I get my screen back, I can go into Documents, and then just very simply, as I showed you before, I can download a document, okay, and then save it.
Costin, they may not be able to see your screen because we have this poll that is going on, so yeah, and I can't.
Okay,
that's going to take over the screen.
Well, there's a couple ways to do that. So one of the things you can do is, in the list of documents, you can select the document and download it to like your local hard drive or to a flash drive. And then when you're using Microsoft Outlook, just attach it from your hard drive or from your flash drive, okay? That's one way to do it. However, if your website is configured a certain way, you're able to select the document in SharePoint, and then up at the top, you'll have some commands where you can do one of two things. You can click on a button that'll take you into Outlook, the web version of Outlook, and you can type up your email, and the document you selected can be attached as a whole separate document, or if it is a large document, you can attach it as a link, which is usually one of the best ways to do it. If the organization, maybe you're dealing with a vendor, if they have permission to see a file, then through a link, and it's a 500 megabyte file with a video in it, or it's a commercial or something that you're working with, then you can just send them a link and they can view it and see it and maybe even make changes to it that way. So that's three ways to do it. Like I said, the poor man's way of doing it is just download it to your local drive, attach it to an email, or if your site's configured this way, when you're in a document, one of the options is to go into Outlook and either attach that file in SharePoint as a separate object, or to provide a link in the email to the person you're sending it to, so when they click on it, they're actually looking at the file that's on your SharePoint server. Great question.
Okay, well, next question. Why does my browser, when I go to office.com, keep taking me to a different MS account that I don't want to be using?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, and I would love to show you my screen about that. But if you remember, when you were in SharePoint, well, actually, when you were in Office, when we logged into office.com, okay, there were like 5 or 6 email accounts or Microsoft accounts listed on the right-hand side of my screen, okay? Now, those are accounts that I have used previously that are all attached to Microsoft Office 365 that I could click on and type in my, proper password for that account and go from there to get into that site. Now, office.com, if you've been using your web browser for quite a while, and maybe you've put certain settings in there, like a lot of people notice when you use Outlook, just, way outside of SharePoint, way outside Office 365. When you log into your computer in the morning and you click on the icon for Outlook, it doesn't ask you for a password. Well, it can be configured to do that. It's just IT makes it easier for you for a single sign-on. Well, this is where things are starting to become different in Microsoft's world today, is right from a web browser, while you're at work, you can sign in with a personal account to take care of personal business during lunch, okay? Or while you're at home, you can sign in with your business account to take care of business while you're at home. But the kicker to your question is if you seem to be getting stuck where you're not able to switch between accounts, what you would do is in your web browser, delete your cache or delete your history. And that will refresh all that. So when you go to office.com or sharepoint.office.com, it'll give you two blank fields. One where you just type in the email address of the account you want, and then the passwords you want. So that's a good question because it can be an extreme. And the extreme way of handling that is to go to your browser's functionality to delete your history or previous settings, and then that'll refresh that for you to where you can openly log in with any Office account that you want.
Okay, great. We're out of time. So thanks, Costin, and thanks for all of you for joining us today. And if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.